If you hired a contractor to save time and money, and because everyone told you that that's what you should do, this episode is for you. Especially if over time the relationship has gotten a little messy. They're sometimes in Slack, showing up in your Zoom meetings, using your Zoom account, using your Canva account, and you're kind of training them on your signature frameworks. And you kind of feel like you became a manager on accident, but you don't really have the safety net that comes with having an employee. This is not that unusual of a situation. And in this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the hidden costs of hiring a contractor and how you can set yourself up better for the future. So let's talk about what really happens when you hire a contractor and why it might be costing you a little bit more than you think. Additionally, in this episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we need to be conscious as business owners of the role that we're playing in the exploitation of freelancers and our fellow small business owners that may not be as far along as we are. Remember that as an employer, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are following the rules. When you decided to sign up for that LLC, create that Instagram account, and start sending out those Stripe links, that meant that you had to make sure that you were educating yourself on anything and everything that comes with being an employer of other people and being a business owner. And that includes the employees that you have on your team. I'm Kira LaForgia, founder of Paradigm Consulting. We've helped hundreds of small business owners stop winging it with their people and start scaling with real structure. From wedding pros and creatives to agencies, e-commerce brands, and wellness companies, we help small but mighty teams build cultures that actually work. And one of those things that comes up a lot is when our clients have a team of contractors that they've come to rely on, but then they start to realize that they may not be in compliance, starting to help them to measure out what the cost benefit is of keeping someone at a 1099 versus taking on that responsibility to move them over to employee. I just want to start with why we default to contractors in the first place. And I think that sometimes it can come off a little bit judgmental or even in a place of fear and anxiety when we talk about the classification of our fellow small business owners, because that is truly what contractors are. When you're first growing your team, it's a no-brainer to hire a contractor. There's no payroll taxes, no benefits, no awkward conversations. There's just a few hours here and there. You get to take some stuff off your plate. The ROI is generally going to be time. It feels like the low commitment option. But what I see all the time is this. You hire someone as a contractor because you're not ready to be someone's boss. But before you know it, you are. You're assigning the work, the deadlines, you're reviewing it, you're giving feedback, they're showing up in recurring meetings. And suddenly, it's not only an issue of should I have this person involved in all of these things? And it becomes also an issue of legalities. I want to make sure that we're pointing out that not every business is the same and not every state has the same laws. For more information about employee and contractor classification from the legal side of things, check out our resource roundup, which we will link below, so that you can figure out what classification people should be within the organizational structure that you've built. Oftentimes, we want to make sure that our employees are a culture fit, that they have the skill sets we need, and that they're able to deliver in ROI in either time or money. Often, when we hire contractors, it's for a very specific situation. And this episode is not meant to teach you that not hiring contractors is the way to go. I just wanted to say that I just hired a contractor too. There's absolutely a time and a place for 1099s in your business. For me, it's because we need short-term solution for a very specific problem. This contractor that we found happens to offer a package that we could buy into, sign the contract, pay the invoice based on the pain point that we were having in the business. There's no additional training, there's no additional resources given, and they set their rates and we pay them accordingly. It is a clean, low risk hire, and it doesn't have too much of an impact on the overall structure of the business. I can imagine that over time, the person that's in this role we're going to become more and more and more dependent on them. And then it will be time to have a discussion of whether that person is the right person to move into the role that what they're doing is growing into as a contractor, or if we need to replace them with a long-term good fit employee with the skills that we need, or even some of the skills that we need, because we can always train them when they're an employee. If there is a gap that you can see in your business happening long-term and you envision somebody coming in and growing with you over time, that is likely going to be a employee. So, with all of that to say, some of the hidden costs that come along with the contractor are primarily in regards to a financial risk. Contractors will often charge more than an employee would make hourly. Long term, that adds up, even if you aren't 100% sure what the cost of the employee would be, you don't really have control over the budget because it is up to the contractor to decide as the market changes if they should change their rates, if they should go up, things like that. When you become dependent on someone in a long term relationship, then you're also dependent on the way that they are going to charge for their services if you're doing it compliantly. If you decide not to be compliant and you're the one setting the rates and retaining that control, then you're also talking about a legal risk, which can come with a lot of cost. Contractor misclassification is one of the highest risks in HR in business, especially for small businesses, because an audit doesn't just trigger from one specific entity. This is a law and a set of laws that is along your federal guidelines, state guidelines, as well as the IRS. So it's not just the legal side of things, but it's also the money side of things that is affected. And if you're pinging the labor board in one of those areas, it's most likely to cause an audit that may cover multiple, which also begs the question of what practices you have been doing in the past, what other contract work have you been doing, what should be reclassified, and you may be at risk for paying really large misclassification fines and penalties. And some of that money is going to go directly to the contractors anyways, because you should have been paying a part of their taxes if you were treating them like employees. So it's a lose-lose situation on the financial and legal risk. Finally, the biggest one that I see that happens with small businesses on a more regular basis, because let's face it, the financial risk is definitely there, the legal risk is definitely there, but you're not always going to get caught every single time, which is great. But it is low-hanging fruit. So I don't want to dismiss that. We have plenty of clients that are coming to us out of a place of I messed up and I need to fix this, and not I'm working ahead of the game and trying to figure this out. But the biggest risk that I see, the biggest cost, is the cultural risk. If we don't know 100% if people are a part of our team, and half of our team is contractors, then it can be really confusing of what we can ask of each other and what we can depend on each other for. It also begs the question of why certain people have to follow policies when other workers do not, which could create an area where you might be exposed legally. You'll end up with a confused staff, a lot of disconnect, and a lot of resentment from both sides. If they walk like an employee, if they talk like an employee, if they work like an employee, they probably are one, whether you meant to get them to that point or not. And you don't really get to choose. It really does depend on what your business needs, how you've decided to staff your business for those needs, and how they should be classified as a result of that. You don't get to pick. You just don't. This stuff isn't always black and white. It's a true spectrum. So I want to just say that there is a kind of sliding scale from a low risk for true freelancers, specialists, agencies, people that are showing up to help support you in your business based on contracts that you've created under services they provide, i.e., if you're a creative agency hiring an HR company. It's a pretty clear differentiator, which is a very low risk. Medium risk, they may do some ongoing work, you may have a retainer involved, but you don't have total control over how they do it, but you might indicate things like meeting times or even task turnaround, things like that. That would be what I would call a yellow flag right in the center of the spectrum that is a medium risk. And finally, we have those high risk people where they act like full-time team members, but you haven't classified them as employees. Not only is this going to create a situation like we talked about for the legal, financial, and your cultural risk, but it also creates a lot of confusion when you do need to make changes. We have had a much harder time transitioning people from contractor to employee when the lines have been blurred so far that the contractors don't see a value in joining a team as an official employee. I know it might sound really scary and you might be living in that gray area right now, which is totally fine, but it is time to clean it up because this is not a joke. So please keep in mind that there are plenty of situations where a contractor makes sense, and there are a lot of ways in which you can stay solo go and rely on partnering with contractors to work with you. But remember, contractors are there to collaborate with, not to integrate into your team. You're not going to be doing onboarding, writing job descriptions, things like that. Best practice is to use them for short-term solutions, not long-term foundations. And keep a really close eye on the relationship that you're building with them, because it actually can be reframed into a really exciting time if you're in a position to bring someone that you've come to know, trust, and rely on within the folds of your team to help you build the culture that you are trying to get to as a small business owner. So let's get rid of some of those fear-mongering things. Let's stop thinking about contractors as a shortcut to success, and let's take this really seriously as business owners so that we can make sure that we're setting the standards in our respective industries of how our workers should be treated. More often than not, employees are going to be a more affordable solution, especially if you have the agility that come with making sure you have your HR foundations in place. I already mentioned our employee and contractor resource roundup, which you can grab below, but also I would love it if you would take our HR self-assessment, which is a brand new checklist. Super simple in Google Docs. It'll take you about 15 minutes and give you a really solid idea of how protected you are when it comes to your HR foundations and show you the readiness that you have already built for scalability within your small business team. And you'll get some emails from us following that to remind you to complete it, but make sure you reply to those because they drop right into my inbox, and let me know what score you got on that assessment. Thanks for being here today. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video, and have a great rest of your week.